So that brings me to the 1995 women's soccer team. The team was assembled by head coach Roy Wilkins and assistants Jane Wilkins and Jen Barber Leonardo. So some of the things that team accomplished, they're the only women's team from Stockton to ever advance to a Final Four. This is the 20th anniversary of that 1995 Final Four season. So the only women's team to play in a Final Four, but the only team at Stockton to ever host a Final Four, and that'll probably never be broken. I don't know if we'll ever host another Final Four in another sport. So that's all theirs. That season, they put together a record of 19-2-1. That remains the record for wins in a season at Stockton. During the year, they scored a whopping 79 goals and gave up only 10. At the end of the regular season, they played 19 games and put together 15 shutouts. Again, that's pretty remarkable. So what I'm going to touch on a little bit is their NCAA tournament run. So I was the athletic trainer at the time, and I had the opportunity to travel with them when they went up to Amherst. So for me, I was there for a lot of that, and it's what sticks out the most in my memory as far as that season. So going into the tournament, they had an 18-1 record, which is one of the best records in the country. They were ranked, I think they were ranked 5th in the country. They were given a first-round bye in the NCAA tournament. We were one of the top scoring teams in the nation, and we had a rock-solid defense. But going into that game, I wasn't overly optimistic. And it's not something I expressed to any of the team. It's something that was running around in my little brain. And the reason for that was I was rather disappointed to see that somehow we got matched up against Trenton in our first-round game. Trenton was ranked number 1 in the country. They were the national champs in 1993 and 1994. They dealt us our only loss that season. Stockton, at that point, had never beaten Trenton in our history. Danielle Zeno put up a goal, and we went up 1-0, actually, when we played them that year. But somehow, Trenton managed to still beat us 2-1 during the regular season. So in my mind, going into that game, I felt we had to score first if we were going to have a chance to win. The longer the game went 0-0, I thought it was the better for us, and I felt if Trenton went up 1-0, I didn't think we were going to win the game. So we get up to Amherst, who's hosting the tournament. We're under 3 minutes into the game, and boom, Trenton scores. So to myself, I'm thinking, well, it was a nice trip. You know, it was a great year. But less than a minute later, Vanessa Dickinson scores a goal assisted by Marcy Williams, and we tie it up 1-1. So for me, it's like, wow, we've certainly never done that before, so let's see what happens now. And the battle began. It went back and forth through the first half, through the second half, and late in the second half, Andrea Tilley puts in a goal assisted by Vanessa Dickinson. We go up 2-1. So the question at that point, at least for me, is, Jesus, can we hold on to this? And we do. So we pull off. We upset the number 1 team in the country. You know, we're extremely high. We find the next day that we're going to be playing Amherst. In my mind, the question is 2 things. You know, were we so prepped up to beat Trenton that we're going to have a drop down playing against Amherst? But on the flip of that, well, Jesus, if we beat the number 1 team in the country, we certainly can beat anybody else. So we're at Amherst. We're playing them when, again, we go down 1-0. Somewhere in the second half, either Carolyn Toll scores a goal assisted by Vanessa Dickinson, or it's Vanessa Dickinson who scored a goal by Carolyn Toll. I'm not exactly sure how it went. But the 2 of them combined for a goal, and we tied it up 1-1 in the second half. So it ends at that point in regulation. We go through 2 overtimes, and it's still tied 1-1. And at that point, we're heading toward penalty kicks, which sets the stage for what I think is one of the most memorable performances in the Stockton archives. And as I was kind of preparing for this speech, thinking about what I was going to talk about, I'm thinking to myself, wow, did she really do that? Did it really happen? So I had to go back and actually check, and actually it did. And I'm sure the team knows what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Marcy Williams. So Marcy was recruited to come to Stockton as a goalie. She was a goalie for us her first 2 years. And in 1994, she was first team NJAC as a goalie. But her senior year, I think because of her athleticism and her speed, Roy and the coaching staff decided to put her up front, and she was going to play offense. So Marcy played no goal, at least that I can recall, at all during her senior year. And I think it took her a little while to get accommodated to the position, but by the end of the season, she had hit her stride. She was a force for Stockton, and teams had a plan against her because she was so fast and she could really strike and attack. So at this point, we're heading to penalty kicks, and the coaching staff has made a decision that Marcy is going to be our goalie for the penalty kicks. So it makes sense on one level, but I think if you were there at the time, Alex, who had played a phenomenal game in the goal, it's kind of a questionable call too. Our starting goalie, who played phenomenally, gets switched out, and it's no slight at all to Alex. She did a phenomenal job, but Marcy had the skill set that kind of puts her in a good spot to be a goalie in a penalty kick situation. So Marcy gets in, she puts on her goalie jersey, she gets into the net, and don't you know it, she stones the first 2 shots from Amherst. And in response to that, Stockton scores 3 goals in a row. So we're up 3-0. Our team's going crazy. I can still picture Marcy bouncing around as she stuffed those 2 goals. And we're sky high. Amherst comes back, scores 2 goals. We're up 3-2. And whose turn is it, do you think, to take a penalty kick but Marcy Williams? So Marcy sets herself up to take her kick, and she's still got her goalie jersey on, mind you. She takes the shot, she scores, we go up 4-2 and win on penalty kicks, and holy cow, we're going to the Final Four. It truly was a phenomenal performance that I don't think I'll ever see happen again, where you're going to see a forward who also plays goal, who also, scores the game-winning penalty kick. So that's one of the things that's most memorable for me. So we advance out of Amherst, and we're going to the Final Four. At this point, we're not quite sure where we're going to play, but again, if we can beat those 2 teams, we certainly can beat anybody else. We probably find out on Monday morning that Stockton will be hosting the Final Four that weekend. And this is one of the things that makes me think about how small a college Stockton was at that time. I mean, I still envision, we found out Monday morning that was happening. Monday afternoon, we're in the Dean of Students' office in a meeting with about 20 people or 25 people from the whole college about how we're going to pull this off. At that time, athletics had 4 full-time staff. It was me, Paul Chambers, Sue Newcomb, and Larry James. And we needed it to be a college effort. And everybody was involved, from admissions to the Dean of Students' office, to the Vice President's office, to plant management. And it was a yeoman's task, and we pulled it off and put together what I think was a very successful Final Four opportunity for all the teams that came here. So we're going to be playing Methodist in the Final Four. The weather isn't really that nice for us that day. As I recall, it's a rainy, windy day. It's cold. It's not a very pleasant day to play soccer, but that was the case for everybody. Once again, against Methodist, we go down 1-0. So for me, I'm thinking, well, we went down 1-0 in the previous 2 games and pulled out the win, so I wasn't overly concerned at this point. I thought we still had a good chance. And from the time we went down 1-0, we stepped it up a notch. We dominated the game from that point on. We were winning the head balls. We were winning the free balls. We had plenty more shots. We had plenty more corner kicks. But it turned out to be one of those games where we just couldn't put the ball in the net. We dominated. Our best goal scorers had opportunities to score, and it just didn't happen for us that day. We outshot them, we out-cornered them, but we ended up losing 2-0. So, of course, we'd like to go on to the finals, but it was a pretty amazing accomplishment by a magical team. It was the first time that Stockton's women's soccer had ever been ranked nationally. It was the first time we made an NCAA tournament appearance. and somehow we got ourselves all the way into the Final Four. So it was a truly remarkable season. So at this time, I want to bring up the maestro of that season, head coach Roy Wilkins.